Hello, my name's Elise.
My name is James.
My name is Ezra.
My name is Camila. My name is Rosa.
What does a good society mean in the context of liberty and equality?
Okay, well, I said that, so a good society with equality and liberty is something that's kind of hard to get, especially in, like, our society in the way it is. And the only reason I say that is because we see so many, like, real-world examples of how there are things put in place that can give people certain liberties or certain equalities to things, and then it's taken away. So, like, we see it with Roe v. Wade, and then being passed is Dobbs
v. Jackson.
Yeah, Dobbs v. Jackson. So, like, you see it with that, where it's, like, immediately taken away, but it was passed on to the state as a, like, way to say, oh, you know. And then we have, like, the Don't Say Gay Act in Florida and things like that. So you have all these things where you have something in place for these people, especially certain groups of people, and then it sort of like immediately or sometimes leads up to it being taken away, especially since the way our government works, where you can go in and like pass certain bills that you want to pass, and you kind of want to like take down things that you don't believe in or agree with, and then the government's kind of like, well, this person came to us first, so we're just gonna go with what they're saying. Or even if the state hears something and they sort of like believe in the same thing, so they're like, oh yeah, we believe in that too, so we're just gonna pass it. Which is like what we see a lot in Florida with like Don't Say Gay Act and like a bunch of other stuff that they've passed.
True.
I have a question on what the Don't Say Gay Act is.
Ezra, you can explain that better than me.
The Don't Say Gay Act is basically a ban that Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, put, where basically you can't talk about gender and sexuality studies in high school, elementary school, because it's deemed inappropriate. So it also means that any independent student can't wear memorabilia. Libraries can't have certain books that talk about sexuality or gender outside of being cisgendered or heterosexual, because it's deemed as inappropriate, and in his words, it's grooming children. So that's the Don't Say Gay Act. And then he's also, to add on to what Elise was saying, in the same state, they're pushing book bans, which is more about liberty of his certain demographic, which is white, cisgendered, cis men, who are Christian, pushing on an ideology for everyone to take and not to learn about other people who coexist. So the books that he's banning include topics of the Holocaust, slavery, how people are treated based on color, gender and sexuality studies, trans people, and the list kind of goes on and broadens out of what is deemed inappropriate.
They're trying to hide what the United States mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what the heck?
So it's kind of just trying to make us seem good, even though we've done
like,
a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
He's changed the whole, like, he's banned AP African American Studies because it teaches anti-American propaganda.
Oh.
Because it teaches about slavery, and it talks about systematic racism and what he deems as critical race theory, which is un-American and pushes a bad view of America.
So this is like all examples of a not good society.
So like,
yes.
With those
what
values.
the heck?
Yeah.
It's technically like banning like
because
historically,
there's
like
a-
education,
They're just
like
hiding it.
like actual good education is just
Yeah.
being banned. What the heck?
So, like, I think for a good society, it means that you have to respect one another and you have to learn to coexist and make sure that you have self, but it's not overwhelming to the point where you think yourself is more important than everyone else. And I think specifically in the West, individualism is more pushed than community. I know specifically, I'm going to use it broad as in like our culture. I think that Portuguese culture, Mexican culture, and Black culture holds community more of value, because family is really important, and making sure that you have someone at the end of the day that's on your side and that you know you can go back to is super important to have. Whereas Northern Europeans, specifically British Europeans, think that your sense of self is more important than your community. And I think because America was founded, I'm putting that in loose terms, or colonized by Britain, you have the ideology of self, of liberty being more important than equality. Because even when the founding fathers were talking about this so-called equality, it was only for a specific type of person. And they used liberty way more than equality because they didn't treat everyone equal. Everyone wasn't equal. And I think it's really difficult to gain a good society that respects equality and can accommodate to liberty when people still hold their sense of self more important than the well-being of everyone.
Frankly, I believe that getting a good society that values liberty and equality is impossible, but only for the fact that the treatment that everyone wants to receive isn't the same. We didn't grow up in the same way. Like, we live in different parts of the United States. We're gonna have different upbringings. We're gonna have different notions of the way we see life. So I feel like we could probably be free to a certain extent, but never treated equally. And I was looking at some pictures on Google of, I don't know if you guys seen it, but it's where there's this tall guy, this guy that's a little shorter than him, and then someone that's even shorter. I can pull up the picture. But basically, if you are treated equally, some get a higher advantage versus others that aren't the same as them. So, because this is the picture, not everyone's the same. So equality, I feel like, is a lot harder to obtain. So in a good society, I feel that maybe these two shouldn't be used one over the other. Like, one should
balance.
Yeah,
between them.
in a way.
Yeah. Well, to add on to Rosa, that's what I also it's gonna have the same point of view as her. So, because I added to a good society will be having a balance between both, because like Rosa mentioned, there's a lot of people that they have different backgrounds and different stuff like that, so they're raised differently, and so treating everyone equally doesn't really mean equal with the same upbringings, you could say, you know. So I think obviously there is liberty is not bad and equality is not bad either, so there should be a balance between both, because I feel maybe too much of both of one or the other, it's not really gonna be fair towards everyone, you know, because everyone has different ways to see it.
I just wrote.
What about the book?
It was Ford quoting, saying that everybody belongs to everybody else.
What does that mean to you?
It means nobody's free and everybody is equal.
Do you think that's good or no?
In a way, yeah, but it leaves room for being manipulated by the government.
Do you think everyone is equal, or do you think they're just saying that everyone's equal?
Everybody's equal, 100%.
Are you talking about in the society?
Yeah,
no, he's talking about the book.
Yeah, I mean the book.
Yeah.
So do you think that?
Well, in the book, everybody's equal because they're all doing the same thing on that. Doing all Well, no, not by their social standards. They're not equal, but like physically, they're all the same. They just judge each other based off what they're told because they're like trained to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it left a lot of room to be manipulated because they were just messed with.
Bringing up the book actually with some of the things that you guys were saying about like especially what Rosa was saying with the picture, like if you think about it in this book, the reason, so one quote that you can see in the book is towards the end, it's like chapter 17 maybe, chapter 16 when they meet the lawmaker, and he was saying how you have to give up something for happiness, you have to like, he was constantly saying you have to give up something for all of these things to work out for everyone. And I feel like in some ways that's technically true, because if we wanted to have this like good society, a lot of us would have to let go of certain beliefs that we have, because the reason everything's so split is because everyone's so strong headed about what they believe in, right? I believe in this, I believe in that, right? And if we would have to give up certain like things that we believe in for it to kind of become this good society. And I feel like you see more of the like twisted way that they got rid of that by like taking control of the people in the book, by like giving.
Well, they also expel people that disagree.
Yeah,
with
and
them.
also like expelling, because you do have the people who end up like becoming more self-conscious, because I feel like all these people aren't really conscious about anything because they're so like brainwashed, and when they do become more conscious about what their society's doing, they just send them away, right? And then you get on this island with other people who believe the same things, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like in a sense you kind of see this, like the way that they did that was by brainwashing these people, right? If we all believe in the same thing, it's going to be easier for us to move past all these other things, right? Because you see how they like treat women really badly, especially like mothers and stuff, and to our society that's like horrible, right? Because it's like that's sexist, that's all these things, but to their society, in the way the book portrays it, that's just normal. That's just the way life is, right? So I feel like we see all of these things as like non-examples, but if you thought in the way like kind of like put your mind in the perspective of these people, which is really hard to do because it's so gross at times, is like that to them this is their like liberty of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think in the book it's a false facade of what like an equal society could be, because everyone belongs to everyone, and it's made blatantly aware that everyone is the same, everyone has the same, but they're still divided by class, there's still a race barrier, there's still a gender barrier, there's still the ideology of you're different, you're worse, I'm better than you, and you're worse than I am. So it's definitely not an equal society, but it's put up to be an equal society because everyone is the same. Because I think James, when he was talking, he was saying that basically, even though that everyone, in the book, everyone is the same, it's not. It's just a false facade of what equality is. You just say it. Just because you say it doesn't make it true.
Yeah.
And it's blatantly aware in the book that everything is very much more of liberty than equality. It's just put up as equality, even though like the liberty isn't of themselves, it's just their government. And all of the people on the islands have realized that, and they're trying to really make equality, because what was his name, Lucifer, was talking about how he wanted to do science and he wanted to help people and bridge those gaps, but he traded that in to gain his own liberty.
Yeah.
So he believed that equality, he basically founded himself because he realized that he could gain more if he just worked with everyone else.
Yeah, which is why he believed so much of like you have to give up something for happiness. You have to trade it in, and he traded in his science.
Yeah.
to give more background or an example of how this society isn't totally equal, but they are putting up the facade, is that they are conditioned through the sleep classes. I don't remember what
Sleep
they call them.
hypnosis.
Sleep
Hypnopedia.
hypnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they, Bernard mentions it a lot when Melina is talking. He says that this is something you've listened to like thousands of times. So an example of that would be when they said, "Oh, I'm glad I'm not a beta because I don't get treated the same." So they that's an example of how I see that it's not equality in the society, even though they try to portray it that way.
Okay.
Although they think they're free, they are conditioned to think that way. So any thoughts or decisions they make really aren't their own, I believe.
You actually, with that same quote, because you say the facade of it is, he even says it himself, is when she's like, oh, I don't want to, like, I would hate to be a beta, but then he says, we condition you to love to be a beta, though.
Yeah, so if you are a beta, you're like, I'm glad I'm not an
So you
alpha.
see that, like, facade as soon as he replies that way of, like,
Yeah.
you love it, though, because we condition you to love it.
His like awareness and I think he only became aware. Well, I know he only became aware because of the way he was treated. Although he was in the same class, he did look different. And that's why like these people, if they see you differently, you aren't treated the same. You aren't treated like one of them. You're outcasted. Which is why he ended up being expelled to the island.
Yeah, so it's like the part where they had the babies and then they were like just, because they separate them like in different colors too, so it's like, oh, this color represents like this group and this color represents this other group. So from the very beginning they're already like separating them, you know. So it's kind of like, okay, it's like that hidden, you know, yeah, we're all equal, but in reality it's not like that, you know.
So our last question is, what is the balance between these two principles sliding back and forth over time? And I put that I think the principles are always going to slide, because I don't think they're ever going to be equal until people realize that, I think until they get over their sense of self and they realize that other people have problems, other people have things to do, and they're not the only people that struggle. I'd like to think that maybe one day we get there, but specifically now in America, where there's specifically for my demographic of trans people, and how there's a lot of legislation against who I am, and the liberty of someone's religion is more important than the equality that I should receive and people like me should receive, and the rise of a whole bunch of people spreading white supremacist ideology and far-right rhetoric on social media and in person. There's a huge imbalance in America where the liberty of a certain pertained group is outweighing everyone else's equality. And I think that's because there is a shift in America where people are starting to pay more attention to everyone else's suffering and everyone else's downfalls. And because there's a hyper-focus on people who are saying, hey, we haven't been treated fairly in the past 400 years. Hey, we haven't been treated fairly, like, I want the same rights as everyone else, and I'm done being tired about it, I'm going to say something about it. I'm done being the silent majority. And I think that, like, a pertained group is, like, realizing how much privilege they have, and they can't conceptualize the fact that they have that, and it makes them angry because they feel because someone else is gaining something, they're losing something. When they can't realize that all that's happening is that they're gaining what you've always had.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to accept that you have a certain privilege that you've never been aware of, and you see how hard your life is, and it's hard to accept that that privilege has always been there.
You see that a lot with how a lot of people shame people for getting like food stamps and stuff. Like, those people are usually the ones who could afford buying food without food stamps, and then you have people who can't, right? So you go back to what Rose's picture was. You put everyone on the same platform, but everyone's gonna need different needs, right?
Yeah.
So like, you as a trans person are gonna need different needs. You're gonna need different care, right? And someone as like a poor person might need things like food stamps or like certain government services, right? But someone who already has all those things, they're gonna see everyone else getting all
More,
these other things and think, well, if I can't have it, you shouldn't have it, right? But even though they do have access to it, because they have the money for it, they have the like sources to get those things.
Because I think when people reference like, oh, it wasn't like that back in my day, it's like you weren't aware of who I was. Like you didn't know I existed. So like, of course, there's all of this legislation for trans people now because you never knew that I existed before. Like now there's more trans representation. They're more in public in the media. People are more out in how they present themselves because they feel safer, and that's great. But of course there's going to be that backlash of people going, well, I don't want to be aware of you because it's new. But to them, it's just they haven't been looking in the first place. So if you look for something, of course you're going to find more of it. Like, that's just how it happens.
They never cared in the first place. So now it's popping up and they're like, oh, we have to care.
Yeah.
Between the sliding back and forth, I feel like it's always been sliding back and never forth. But with social media, I think that's had a great impact on the awareness people are going through. They're starting to, I guess you could say, be more enlightened, or they're starting to learn. They're starting to see more people on social media, different, how everyone's different, and that's something many people don't like. They don't like different. They shame different, and that's why there's so much of this sliding back. But I think the sliding back and forth will forever continue. Because I don't think we'll be able to ever come to an agreement to be treated all the same unless we get to like a state where sorry where people are being conditioned because our different upbringings makes it challenging. And I'm not saying that being conditioned is something we should have to do, because it's not. But coming to a situation where everyone has the same notions, the same thoughts of everyone should be treated in a manner where where one is not over the other, where one is not more important just because someone happens to be stronger, or someone happens to be smarter, or someone is not able-bodied, or someone can't hear. Those different things, everyone's different, and that puts people at disadvantages, and that gives other advantages, and that's because of the way society was created. It was, or at least here in the United States, it was founded by white men, so it was made, the laws were made for white men. That's why we've been, over time, we've been starting to surpass that, but I don't think we'll see anything
You don't think there would be like a radical difference?
Yeah.
I feel like
Anytime soon.
that feeling also comes from how new our country technically still is.
Mhm.
Because you have a lot of other countries and you see like, oh, they get free healthcare. Why don't we have that?
Yeah.
But it's like the reason they have all those things is because they're much older.
Yeah, more progressive states have had more time to develop and understand everyone's position. So,
Aren't their taxes also more expensive here? Over there?
yeah, because they have different income and different way of, like, how they provide, I guess. Their jobs don't pay, like, bare minimum. Their jobs pay a sufficient amount to live. Like, specifically in Portugal, you're paid the amount to where you can basically require all of your basic needs and a little bit extra. But Portugal's been around, it's been a country forever. Like, it's one of the oldest civilizations. And so, for them to be as progressive as they are, you have to see how old they are.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in that, like, small little country forever.
For me, I put there's always gonna be that back and forth like everyone else did. I put mostly because everyone has different perspectives, everyone has different views on stuff, everyone has like different opinions, and because of that, I feel like at the end of the day, everyone's just gonna be like, well, I have this and I have that, and you don't, or you don't have this, you don't have that, and I do, you know. So it's always gonna be like, yeah, this, that. So. And because there's a lot of people that are just like really like they're really stubborn. So they're gonna be like, no, nothing's gonna change. I wanted to keep it this way. So because of that, everyone's just. I feel like everyone at the end of the day is gonna have to continue kind of like that back and forth of like, oh yeah, we're finally doing something, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we go back. You know, with like the abortion laws, and then you know a whole bunch of other stuff that has happened, and because of that, I that's why I believe that there's gonna be always that back and forth no matter what.
I also agree. I feel like is there a certain bias that people have, especially when they have like they figure out their own opinions toward things. The reason that they don't like to change it, sometimes they don't even care about the context of it, and it's just like they just want to believe it because they said it, and like they believe it's right because they said it, and because it's what they want.
They don't want to hear anyone else.
Yeah, they don't care about anything else, like how you're saying, and like
empathy.
Yeah, they don't have any empathy, and they just. And I see that in the government of the Brave New World book, like how the actions are like they don't care. They control everything and for no reason, just to gain.
Well, do you see that in like our own society?
Yeah, I also see that in our own society of how people manipulate other people into thinking. To believing what they're thinking, like without like proper facts. They'll like tell people things, like on social media, like they'll false advertise things that are totally not true, or like even like your friends would say something like, "Oh, you like this or that," and then you Google it, and it's all wrong. It's like there's always like just lies thrown around sometimes, and yeah, that's what Camila said.